I told you not to go near my daughter!
Brunson was 5 seconds away from beating the homeless man unconscious for touching his paralyzed daughter. But when the veteran whispered a single command, the little girl dropped her crutches and stood up for the first time in 4 years. As Brunson stood frozen in shock watching his daughter walk, the old man looked at the sky in terror and sprinted away before the biker could even ask how he did it. Before we reveal the secret word that woke up her legs, I want to know who is riding with us today. Where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments right now. Hit that subscribe button to join the Brotherhood. Now let's get into the story. The Nevada sun turned the asphalt into a skillet, and Brunson's knuckles were bleeding again. He twisted the torque wrench on his Harley's engine block, diesel and motor oil coating his forearms like war paint. The heat made everything shimmer. The Henderson subdivision, the perfectly manicured lawns, the white picket fences that had no goddamn business being this close to the desert. Behind him, metal scraped against concrete in that rhythm that had haunted him for 4 years. Scrape, drag, pause, scrape, drag, pause. Nicole. His 7-year-old daughter stood 10 feet away in her white lace dress, the one her grandmother insisted she wear for normal girl things, leaning hard on those prison bar crutches. Her little knuckles were white from gripping the handles. Her legs, pale and thin beneath the hem, hung like broken marionette strings. The neurologist said there was nothing physically wrong. The x-rays were clean. The MRIs showed perfect bone structure, healthy nerves, responsive tissue. But since the highway accident that turned her mother into a closed-casket funeral, Nicole's legs had simply refused to work. Psychogenic paralysis, they called it. Trauma-induced conversion disorder. A $10 word for we don't know how to fix your kid. Brunson spat onto the driveway and watched it sizzle. That's when he heard the shuffle. Not the neighbor's dog. Not a delivery truck. Something slower, deliberate, wrong. He looked up, and his entire nervous system fired a warning shot. A thing wearing a man's clothes, stood at the edge of his property line. 70 years old, maybe older, with a gray beard that looked like it had been shaved with a rusty blade and then allowed to grow back in patches. His flannel shirt hung off his frame like a sail without wind. His boots were held together with duct tape, the silver strips catching the brutal sunlight. But it wasn't the filth or the smell of sweat and old cigarettes that made Brunson's hand instinctively move toward the wrench. It was the way the old man was staring at Nicole. Not leering, not the predatory gaze Brunson had learned to recognize in his years running security for the club. This was different, haunted. Like the man was seeing a ghost he'd spent decades trying to forget. The homeless man took a step forward, then another. Brunson rose to his full 6'4", his shadow stretching across the driveway like a threat. "You got 3 seconds to turn around, old man." The intruder didn't acknowledge him. His eyes stayed locked on Nicole, and his cracked lips moved silently, forming words Brunson couldn't hear. The man's hands trembled. Not from fear, but from something closer to electricity. Nicole tilted her head, confused, but not afraid. That was the moment Brunson snapped. "I said back the fuck off!" His boots hit the asphalt like thunder as he charged, fists clenched, vision narrowing to a single target. He was 3 seconds from putting this vagrant through a fence post when the old man dropped to his knees in front of Nicole. Brunson's roar tore through the quiet suburb, but before he could reach them, the man leaned in close to Nicole's ear and whispered a single word. One word. Nicole's eyes went wide. The crutches slipped from her hands and clattered onto the concrete with a metallic crash that echoed like a gunshot. And then, impossibly, horrifyingly, beautifully, Nicole stood. On her own 2 legs, unassisted. The old man's face drained of all color. He staggered backward, eyes wild with terror, and bolted down the street like he'd just woken the devil. Brunson froze mid-stride, his fist still cocked, his daughter standing in front of him like a miracle he didn't believe in. Nicole looked down at her own legs, then up at her father. "Daddy," she whispered, "I can feel my feet." Brunson's boots pounded pavement before his brain caught up. The old man was fast, impossibly fast, for someone held together with duct tape and desperation. He cut through the neighbor's yard, vaulted a chain-link fence with the muscle memory of someone who'd done it 1,000 times before, and disappeared into the maze of suburban alleyways that connected Henderson's cookie-cutter developments. Brunson didn't think, didn't stop to check on Nicole. His daughter was standing. After 4 years of carrying her weight on his shoulders, after every failed doctor's appointment, after every night he'd prayed to a God he'd stopped believing in, she was standing. And the only man who knew why was sprinting away like he'd committed murder. The alley stank of rotting garbage and piss. Brunson's chest burned, but he didn't slow down. He caught sight of the flannel shirt ducking behind a rusted dumpster, and he closed the distance with predator precision. "End of the line, old man." The vagrant was pressed against the brick wall, trembling so violently his teeth chattered, but it wasn't from Brunson. The man's eyes kept darting upward, to the sky, to the roof lines, to the telephone wires, like he expected something to swoop down and snatch him. "They're watching," the old man muttered, his voice cracking. "The program. They're always watching. Satellites, drones. You brought me into the open, you stupid." He checked the sky again, frantic. "They'll triangulate. 5 minutes, maybe less." Brunson grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the dumpster. "I don't give a shit about your conspiracy theories. What did you do to my daughter?" "I didn't do anything!" Alcott's voice pitched higher, desperate. "I undid it. The trigger, the command sequence. It was still active in her nervous system. I just—" "English, motherfucker." "I woke her up." Alcott's eyes were wild, pupils dilated. "From the freeze, the psychogenic lock. Your daughter wasn't paralyzed. She was trapped, her brain protecting her from—" The old man's words dissolved into a wet cough. His knees buckled, and Brunson realized with a jolt that the man weighed almost nothing, just skin stretched over bone, held together by whatever demons were chasing him. Alcott slumped against the dumpster, gasping. "Haven't eaten in 3 days, maybe 4. Brunson's tactical brain overrode his rage. This man, this walking skeleton with secrets coded into his DNA, was the only link to whatever miracle had just happened. If he died in this alley, those answers died with him. The hospital would mean police reports, questions, cameras, the kind of attention the club couldn't afford. Decision made. Brunson hoisted Alcott over his shoulder like a bag of concrete mix and carried him back to where his Harley sat idling. Nicole was still standing on the driveway, neighbors starting to peek through curtains. He sat Alcott on the bike, zip-tied his wrists to the handlebars, and fired up the engine. "Hold on, old man. You're about to meet the family." The clubhouse squatted on the edge of North Las Vegas like a scarred bulldog. Concrete walls, razor wire, and enough security cameras to make a casino jealous. Brunson's brothers were drinking in the garage bay when he roared in with his cargo, Nicole riding in the sidecar he'd welded on 4 years ago. "The fuck is this?" Reaper, the club sergeant-at-arms, stepped forward with a wrench in his tattooed hand. "Intervention," Brunson said flatly, cutting the engine. Alcott slumped against the handlebars, barely conscious. But when Nicole climbed out of the sidecar and walked, not crawled, not dragged herself with crutches, across the oil-stained concrete toward him, every man in that garage went silent. She knelt beside Alcott and touched his weathered hand. "My legs weren't broken," Nicole said softly, her voice carrying in the stillness. They were asleep. Since Mommy's crash, I was so scared they forgot how to wake up. She looked up at the circle of leather-clad giants surrounding them. He remembered the magic word. Alcott's eyes fluttered open, and for the first time since Brunson had chased him down, the old man's expression shifted from terror to something else. Guilt. "It wasn't magic, little one," Alcott whispered, his voice barely audible. "It was a weapon. And the people who made it." The lights in the clubhouse went out, every single one. Then, in the suffocating darkness, Brunson heard the sound that made his blood freeze, the hydraulic hiss of the main gate opening, and the purr of a very expensive engine pulling into the compound. 3 days later, Alcott was elbow-deep in a panhead engine that hadn't run since Reagan was president. Brunson watched from the clubhouse doorway, arms crossed, as the old man worked with the kind of surgical precision that didn't come from YouTube tutorials. Alcott's hands, steady now, fed and rested, moved like they were following a blueprint only he could see. Valve timing, carburetor synchronization. He didn't ask for tools, he just pointed, and whoever was closest handed them over. The brothers had stopped calling him the crazy homeless guy after day 2. Now he was just Doc, though nobody knew if it was because he'd fixed Nicole or because he could diagnose a blown gasket from 30 feet away by sound alone. Alcott slept in the impound lot, in a camper shell someone had dragged over. He didn't talk about the program, didn't mention drones or satellites or whatever paranoid rabbit hole he'd been screaming about in that alley. He just worked, ate the chili someone's old lady brought over, and kept his eyes down. But Brunson noticed things. The way Alcott positioned himself so his back was never to a window. The way he flinched when helicopters passed overhead, which in Vegas was every 20 goddamn minutes. The way he checked the perimeter fence before dawn every morning, like he was expecting something to breach it. Reaper leaned against the doorframe beside Brunson, watching the old man torque down a cylinder head. "He's good. Real good. Military good." "Yeah," Brunson muttered. "That's what worries me." That's when the black sedan pulled up. Not a cop car, not a repo truck. A Mercedes S-Class. The kind of vehicle that cost more than the clubhouse's annual property tax, idling outside the chain-link gate like a shark circling a reef. The windows were tinted black, but Brunson could feel the eyes inside assessing, calculating, measuring threat levels. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out. Tall, mid-40s, suit so sharp it could cut steak, tailored within an inch of perfection. His shoes, Italian leather, probably cost $2,000, didn't belong within 5 miles of this neighborhood. He adjusted his cufflinks like he was about to negotiate a merger, not walk into a biker compound. "Gentlemen," the man called out, his voice smooth as aged bourbon, "my name is Vance. I'm here to collect property that belongs to Aegis Corporation." Brunson walked to the gate, Reaper and 4 other brothers flanking him. "We don't got any property of yours, Suit." Vance smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "I think you do. Elderly gentleman, gray beard, former employee. Suffers from paranoid delusions and is considered a security risk to national interests." Behind them, Brunson heard the wrench clatter to the concrete. Alcott had gone statue still, staring at Vance like a rabbit spotting a coyote. "Don't know what you're talking about," Brunson said flatly. "Now get the fuck off my property before I make you a security risk." Vance's smile widened. "I appreciate the loyalty, Mr. Brunson. Truly. But you don't understand the situation you're in." He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen twice, and held it up. Brunson's blood turned to ice. The screen showed a live video feed, crystal clear, night vision quality of Nicole's bedroom. His daughter was asleep in her bed, her white lace dress from earlier hung on the closet door, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. The camera angle was from the ceiling corner. Someone had been inside his house, inside his daughter's room. "We're not asking for your cooperation," Vance said softly, pocketing the phone. "We're informing you of the consequences of non-compliance. Return Dr. Alcott to Aegis custody within 48 hours, or we'll be forced to expand our retrieval parameters." He tapped the roof of the Mercedes twice. The engine purred to life. "Oh, and Mr. Brunson," Vance called over his shoulder. "Tell the doctor that program Coldfall is operational again. He'll understand what that means." The sedan rolled away, leaving nothing but tire marks and the smell of expensive cologne. Brunson turned to find Alcott on his knees, hyperventilating, his face the color of old paper. "Coldfall," Alcott gasped. "Oh, God. They reactivated Coldfall." Reaper cracked his knuckles. "Someone want to explain what the fuck just happened?" Brunson's phone buzzed. Another text, another video. This time it was Nicole's school. Playground. Timestamp, 11:47 a.m. Today. A red laser dot hovered on the swing set where she'd been playing 2 hours ago. The message below read, "Tick-tock." Brunson dragged Alcott into the back office and slammed the door hard enough to crack the frame. "Start talking, now." He shoved the phone in Alcott's face, the playground footage still frozen on screen. "They've got eyes on my daughter. They've been inside my house. And you're gonna tell me every goddamn thing about Coldfall before I decide whether to hand you over or bury you in the desert myself." Alcott slumped into a chair, his hands shaking so badly he had to grip his knees to steady them. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow, like something had been scooped out of him years ago and never refilled. "I was a medic. Vietnam. 71 to 73. He stared at the water-stained ceiling. "But that's not why Aegis recruited me. They wanted me because I could see the freeze." "The freeze?" "When soldiers lock up in combat. Not physically injured, just gone. Eyes open, body functional, but the brain hits an emergency brake and refuses to move forward. Psychogenic paralysis triggered by acute trauma." Alcott's voice cracked. "I could identify it in minutes. More importantly, I could reverse it. A specific auditory command paired with a pressure point unlocks the neurological circuit, gets the soldier back in the fight." Brunson's jaw tightened. "The word you whispered to Nicole." "Disengage." Alcott nodded. "The trigger to release the freeze state. I developed the protocol in '74, field-tested it in Central America where nobody was watching, saved 37 soldiers from permanent catatonia. Aegis called me a miracle worker." He laughed bitterly. "Then they asked me to reverse engineer it." The air in the room changed. "Reverse it?" Reaper spoke from the doorway, his knuckles white around a shotgun. "Make people freeze instead of unfreeze them." Alcott's eyes were wet now. "Imagine it. An enemy combatant, fully functional, suddenly unable to move. No bullets, no blood, just a whispered command and a tap on the spine. The perfect non-lethal weapon for covert operations. Aegis secured black budget funding in '89, called it Program Coldfall." Brunson felt his stomach twist. "You didn't." "I did." Alcott's voice broke completely. "God forgive me, I did. We tested it on volunteers at first, then on prisoners who weren't exactly volunteers, then on people who didn't know they were part of any program at all. I caused the same paralysis in 83 human beings that I'd spent my career curing." He looked up at Brunson, tears cutting tracks through the grime on his face. "Your daughter. When I saw her on those crutches, frozen with fear, I recognized my own handiwork. Not literally, but the signature, the specific neurological pattern. I've been seeing it in my nightmares for 30 years. So you fixed her, Brunson said quietly. Why? Because I stole the research. Alcott straightened slightly, some steel returning to his spine. Every file, every protocol, every test subject's name. I encrypted it and scattered it across servers Aegis can't access without triggering alarms that'll light up the Pentagon. They want it back because without the data, Coldfall is just a party trick. With it, they can deploy it globally. Reaper whistled low. How long have you been running? 4 years? Same amount of time your daughter's been on crutches. Alcott met Brunson's eyes. I'm not crazy. I'm not paranoid. They are watching, and they will kill everyone you love to get to me. The office went silent except for the hum of the air conditioner struggling against the Nevada heat. Brunson pulled out his knife. Alcott didn't flinch, just closed his eyes and waited. Instead, Brunson cut the zip tie still hanging from Alcott's wrist. The one he'd forgotten was there since the bike ride. The plastic clattered to the floor. Then Brunson picked up a mechanic's wrench from the desk and pressed it into Alcott's palm. You're not a prisoner anymore, Doc, Brunson said. You're under protection. Alcott stared at the wrench like it was a holy relic. You don't understand what you're... I understand. They put a laser sight on my kid's playground. Brunson's voice dropped to something lethal. I understand they sent some suit to threaten my family, and I understand that you gave Nicole her legs back when nobody else could. He crouched to eye level with the old man. They want a war. They're about to learn what happens when you threaten a club's family. The lights in the clubhouse flickered. Once, twice. Then the perimeter alarm screamed to life, and someone started pounding on the office door. Brunson! It was Cage, the prospect. We've got incoming, multiple vehicles. They're not cops. Through the window, Brunson saw the first canister arc over the fence. Tear gas. They're not waiting 48 hours, Alcott whispered. Brunson grabbed his cut off the chair and threw it on. Then neither are we. The tear gas hit like a fist to the throat. Brunson kicked open the office door as white smoke poured through the shattered garage windows. His eyes burned, lungs screaming, but he could still see shapes moving in the haze, black tactical gear, night vision goggles, suppressed rifles. Not cops. Cops announced themselves. These bastards moved like wraiths. Nicole! Brunson roared, charging toward the back rooms where she'd been coloring with Reaper's old lady. A mercenary materialized from the smoke, weapon raised. Brunson didn't slow down, just grabbed a chain off the workbench and whipped it across the man's faceplate. The Kevlar cracked. The Merc dropped. Behind him, the club erupted into chaos. Shotgun blasts, the metallic clang of wrenches meeting helmets. Someone was screaming. Cage, maybe, or one of the prospects. The mercenaries moved with clinical precision, using stun grenades and zip ties. But the bikers fought like cornered animals. Dirty, desperate, effective. Brunson crashed through the door to the rec room. Nicole was huddled under a table, her hands over her ears, tears streaming down her face. Reaper's old lady, Sadie, had a .38 pointed at the window, her hands shaking. I got her! Brunson scooped Nicole up, her small body trembling against his chest. Stay low. Get to the... The window exploded inward. A flashbang detonated 3 feet from Brunson's head. The world turned white. His ears rang like church bells. He staggered, trying to keep his grip on Nicole, but his legs weren't cooperating. Someone was dragging him backward. Multiple someones. Through the haze, he saw a red laser dot dance across Nicole's forehead. Then Alcott stepped into the doorway. The old man's hands were raised, his voice cutting through the chaos. Stop! I'll go! Just stop! The mercenaries froze. One of them, The team leader, judging by the stripes on his vest, spoke into his radio. "Package acquired. Cease fire." "Doc, no!" Brunson lunged forward, but his legs gave out. The flashbang had scrambled his equilibrium. He could only watch as Alcott walked toward the Mercs with the slow, resigned gait of a man walking to the gallows. "She's innocent," Alcott said quietly, looking at the team leader. "The girl. All of them. This is between Aegis and me." The team leader nodded once, then smashed his rifle stock into Alcott's face. The old man crumpled. Two mercenaries grabbed him by the arms and dragged him through the smoke like a sack of garbage. Alcott didn't resist, didn't fight. Just let them haul him toward the waiting van, blood pouring from his broken nose. Brunson's vision cleared just enough to see them throw Alcott into the back. The doors slammed shut. The van's tires squealed as it peeled out, leaving the compound gate hanging off its hinges. The smoke began to clear. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in hellish red. Reaper stumbled over, his face a mask of blood. 4 brothers down, none dead, but they knew what they were doing. Surgical strike. Brunson set Nicole down gently, his hands shaking with rage. The clubhouse was trashed. Windows shattered, furniture overturned, shell casings scattered like brass confetti. But Nicole was alive. They were all alive, because Alcott had traded himself. Sadie crouched beside Nicole, checking her for injuries. That's when Nicole's small hand emerged from her pocket, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. "Daddy," she whispered, "Mr. Alcott gave this to me, before the bad men came. He said to give it to you if they took him." Brunson unfolded the paper with trembling fingers. GPS coordinates, scrawled in hasty handwriting, and below them 3 words: desert, abandoned airfield, hurry. Reaper read over his shoulder. "It's a trap." "I know," Brunson said. "They'll have 50 guys, military-grade weapons, air support." "I know. We go in there, we might not come out." Brunson pulled out his phone and opened the encrypted club channel. His fingers moved across the screen, typing the message he'd never thought he'd send. Statewide call, all chapters, red alert. He looked at Reaper. "Then we better bring an army." His phone buzzed. The first response came in from the Mongols chapter president. "How many you need?" Then the Vagos. When and where? Then Sons chapters from Henderson, Boulder City, and Laughlin. "We're rolling." Brunson stared at the GPS coordinates on the paper. "All of them," he said. "We need all of them." Outside in the distance he could already hear it starting. The sound of engines firing up across Las Vegas. The sound of war. They came from every corner of Nevada like iron filings to a magnet. Brunson stood on the roof of the clubhouse at 11:47 p.m., watching headlights converge on North Las Vegas from 6 different directions. The air smelled like burning rubber and exhaust fumes, the perfume of incoming cavalry. His shoulder throbbed where a Merc had clipped him during the fight, but the pain kept him sharp. Below, the compound looked like a MASH unit. Brothers with split lips and black eyes loaded shotguns. Someone was duct-taping Kevlar vests that weren't rated for what they were about to do. Cage, young, stupid, loyal Cage, was filling Molotov cocktails with gasoline and rags torn from an old American flag. Reaper climbed onto the roof, his phone glowing. "Mongols just hit the 95, 40 bikes. Vagos are coming up from Henderson, 60, maybe 70. Even got a call from the Banditos chapter in Reno. They're sending a squad." "Christ," Brunson muttered. "How many total?" Last count, 212. 212 motorcycles. Rival clubs that had spent decades pissing on each other's territory, stealing each other's women, and settling grudges with tire irons. All rolling toward the same coordinates because of one 7-year-old girl and one broken old man who'd given her back her legs. "It's not about club politics anymore," Reaper said quietly. "Word spread. That homeless vet healed a kid when doctors couldn't. Then Suits came and snatched him for it. That's the kind of shit that transcends colors. Brunson nodded. In the world of motorcycle clubs there were rules, lines you didn't cross. And threatening children? Kidnapping a man who healed instead of harmed? That was a line drawn in blood. The first wave arrived at midnight. The Mongols rolled in formation, their president, a scarred beast named Hector, killing his engine at the gate. He dismounted, walked straight to Brunson, and offered his hand. "We got history," Hector said. "Bad history, but this is bigger." Brunson shook it. "Appreciated. Where's the girl?" "Safe house. Guarded." "Good." Hector jerked his thumb at his crew. "We're in. What's the play?" By 12:30 a.m., the staging area looked like a military operation run by criminals. Maps were spread across hoods. Weapons were distributed. Someone had hacked into Aegis's radio frequency, or claimed they had, and was monitoring chatter. The Vagos showed next. Then the Outlaws. Then clubs Brunson didn't even recognize, wearing patches from Arizona and California, drawn by the story that had rippled through the underground like wildfire. A homeless veteran healed a paralyzed child. The corporations took him. The Brotherhood was taking him back. At 1:00 a.m., Brunson addressed the assembled army in the compound. 200 faces, hardened by violence and poverty, and the kind of loyalty you couldn't buy. Some of them were enemies. Some of them had killed each other's brothers. But tonight, they were unified. "They've got tactical gear," Brunson said, his voice carrying across the lot. "They've got training. They've got every advantage except one." He held up the GPS coordinates. "They don't know we're coming with the entire goddamn state." A roar went up. Primal, furious, righteous. At 1:15 a.m., they rolled out. The convoy stretched for 2 miles. Harleys, Yamahas, Indians, choppers held together with baling wire and spite. They roared down the Vegas Strip at speeds that made tourists scatter and cameras flash. The neon lights of Caesars and the Bellagio reflected off chrome and leather as the thunder of 200 engines shook windows and set off car alarms for blocks. Cops tried to set up roadblocks. The convoy split like water and reformed. By the time they hit the desert highway heading northeast, they were a single organism, a beast made of gasoline and rage, hunting under the Nevada stars. Brunson rode point, the GPS coordinates burning in his mind. 30 miles out, 20, 10. Then he saw it. The abandoned airfield rose from the desert like a graveyard of American ambition. Rusted hangars, cracked runways. And in the center, lit by floodlights powerful enough to be seen from space, a compound, razor wire, guard towers, armed silhouettes moving in patterns. Reaper pulled up beside him, killing his engine. The entire convoy went silent, 200 killers staring at their target. "That's not an extraction site," Reaper said slowly. "That's a black site." Brunson saw movement on one of the towers, a sniper adjusting his scope, the glint of a rifle barrel catching moonlight. Then a spotlight snapped on, pinning them like insects. A loudspeaker crackled to life. "Mr. Brunson, we've been expecting you." The voice belonged to Vance. "Turn around now and nobody dies tonight. Come any closer and we'll bury you in the desert where your daughter will never find the bodies." Brunson felt the weight of 200 eyes on him. Then he heard something that made his blood freeze. From inside the compound, faint, carried on the wind, a scream. Alcott's scream. Followed by a sound Brunson recognized from too many back-alley beatings, the crack of a rifle stock on bone. Reaper looked at him. "Your call, brother." Brunson reached into his cut and pulled out a road flare. He cracked it to life, the red fire painting his face like a demon. Then he raised it high above his head and threw it toward the compound gates. The signal. 200 engines roared to life as one, and the desert erupted into war. The first Molotov cocktail arced through the night like a falling star. It hit the guard tower on the left, and suddenly the sniper wasn't aiming anymore. He was burning. The compound's carefully orchestrated defensive perimeter shattered as 200 motorcycles hit the fence line at 60 miles per hour. Chain link twisted and snapped. Razor wire flew like steel confetti. The bikers didn't slow down. They accelerated. Brunson led the charge, his Harley screaming as he jumped a section of collapsed fence and landed inside the compound. Gunfire erupted, controlled bursts from the mercenaries, trained and tactical. But discipline meant nothing against chaos this concentrated. A Mongol named Santiago threw a chain through a floodlight. Glass exploded. Darkness swallowed a third of the compound. The mercenaries' night vision became a liability as muzzle flashes from their own weapons blinded them in the green glow. The Vagos hit the eastern perimeter, shotguns blazing. Someone, Brunson didn't see who, crashed a bike directly into the guard shack, detonating on impact in a fireball of gasoline and defiance. The mercs tried to form a defensive line, but you can't form lines against a flood. Reaper appeared on Brunson's left, a tire iron in one hand, blood already decorating his cut.
There!
He pointed at the largest structure, a corrugated metal hangar with blacked-out windows and 2 guards flanking a reinforced door. That's where they'd keep him. Brunson twisted the throttle and aimed his bike at the hangar's side wall. The mercenaries saw him coming and opened fire, but the other bikers swarmed them like hornets, dragging them down with fists and chains and improvised brutality. The wall grew larger. Brunson didn't brake. The front tire hit the corrugated metal at 40 miles per hour. The wall buckled, then burst inward with a sound like a shotgun blast. Brunson and his Harley crashed through into a space that smelled like disinfectant and copper. He tumbled off the bike, rolled, came up with his fists raised, and froze. Alcott was strapped to a metal chair in the center of the room, his face a mask of bruises and blood. Both eyes were swollen shut. His fingers were bent at wrong angles, broken systematically. A car battery sat on a table beside him, jumper cables still smoking. But he was alive. "Doc!" Brunson rasped, rushing forward. Alcott's head lolled, one eye cracked open, just a slit. "Brunson," his voice was a broken whisper. "You stupid, beautiful bastard." Behind them the sounds of battle raged, screaming, engines, explosions. The compound was falling apart like wet cardboard. Brunson pulled out his knife and started sawing through the zip ties. "We're getting you out." "The data." Alcott coughed, blood speckling his lips. "They couldn't break me. I didn't tell them where." "Don't care. We're leaving." "You should care." A new voice, smooth and cold. Brunson spun. Vance stood in the doorway, illuminated by the fires burning outside. His expensive suit was ruined, torn, dusty, one sleeve completely gone. But the pistol in his hand was steady as bedrock, and it was pointed directly at Alcott's head. "I underestimated you," Vance said conversationally, like they were discussing stock portfolios. "I thought the threat to your daughter would be enough. I didn't account for—" He gestured vaguely at the chaos outside. "This level of stupidity." Brunson stepped between the gun and Alcott. "You want him? You go through me. That can be arranged." Vance's finger tightened on the trigger. Then the wall behind Vance exploded, not from a Molotov, from a Harley. Hector, the Mongols' president, rode his bike through the wall like a battering ram, his front tire catching Vance in the hip and sending him sprawling. The pistol clattered across the concrete floor. Hector killed his engine and dismounted, breathing hard. "Looked like you needed backup." Vance tried to crawl toward his gun. Brunson stepped on his hand, grinding the Italian leather into the concrete until he heard bones creak. "Where's the girl?" Vance hissed through his teeth. "You think this is over?" "We have her school schedule, her bus route, her grandmother's address in—" Brunson didn't let him finish. His boot came down on Vance's jaw with the kind of precision that comes from years of enforcing club law. Something cracked. Vance went limp. "Tie him up," Brunson ordered. "He's coming with us." Reaper appeared in the doorway, his face lit by orange flames. "Compound's clear. Mercs are scattered. Most of them ran when they realized we weren't stopping." "But, boss," he pointed outside. Through the gap in the wall, Brunson could see the desert beyond the compound, and the helicopter rising from behind one of the hangars, its rotors cutting the night air. On the loudspeaker mounted to its belly, a familiar voice. "Dr. Alcott still has value, but you've just made yourselves domestic terrorists. Enjoy federal prison." The helicopter banked hard and accelerated into the darkness. Alcott grabbed Brunson's arm with his broken fingers, his grip surprisingly strong. "Let them go. They can't access the data without me, and I'm not going anywhere." "What about Nicole?" Brunson's voice was raw. "They know where she is." Alcott's broken face twisted into something almost like a smile. "They knew where I was, too. Didn't help them much, did it?" Outside, 200 bikers stood among the burning ruins of Aegis Corp's black site, watching the helicopter disappear. Then Brunson's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. A woman's voice, clinical and cold. "Mr. Brunson, this is Director Chen, Aegis Operations. You've made a very expensive mistake tonight. Dr. Alcott dies, or your daughter does. You have 6 hours to decide." The line went dead. Brunson looked at Alcott, then at the assembled Brotherhood. "They want a decision," he said quietly. He raised his phone and took a picture of Vance, unconscious and zip-tied on the floor, surrounded by 200 armed bikers. He sent it to the number that had just called him. Below the image, he typed, "We already made one." 3 seconds later, his phone rang again. He didn't recognize the voice this time, but he recognized the fear in it. "We want you to disappear." Brunson's voice cut through the static like a blade. Around him, the desert compound burned, casting dancing shadows across 200 faces waiting for his next move. Director Chen's silence on the other end of the line felt like a coiled spring. "Program Coldfall gets buried," Brunson continued. "All research, all files. You forget Dr. Alcott exists. You forget my daughter exists. And in exchange, your boy Vance here gets to keep breathing." Behind him, Vance stirred. His eyes snapped open, still sharp despite the broken jaw, and Brunson saw the calculation happening. The same tactical assessment that had probably gotten Vance recruited into Black Ops in the first place. Vance's hand moved, not toward a weapon, toward the emergency beacon clipped to his belt. Reaper saw it too. "Brunson!" But Vance was already pressing the button. 3 quick pulses. The distress signal that would bring extraction. Backup. Everything Aegis had in reserve. The sound came immediately. Rotors cutting air. Not from a distance, from directly overhead. A Black Hawk helicopter materialized from the darkness, spotlight blazing, its side door already open. Rappel lines dropped like spider silk, and 2 operators in full tactical gear descended in seconds. Vance rolled, grabbed a discarded pistol from the floor, and came up shooting. The first bullet hit Brunson in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. Pain exploded white-hot, but he'd been shot before. The difference between professionals and survivors wasn't whether you got hit, it was whether you stayed down. Brunson didn't stay down. Vance was aiming for a second shot when Alcott lunged from the chair, broken fingers, shattered ribs, face swollen beyond recognition, and wrapped his arms around Vance's legs. The old man's weight threw off the aim just enough. The second bullet went high, sparking off metal. "Run!" Alcott screamed at Brunson. "Get out!" But Brunson wasn't running. Not anymore. He closed the distance in 3 strides, his right hand, his iron hand, the one that had earned him his reputation in 20 years of club enforcement, cocked back like a sledgehammer. Vance tried to bring the gun around, but Alcott was still holding his legs, buying seconds with his broken body. Brunson's fist connected with Vance's temple, once, twice. The third punch shattered something, whether in Vance's skull or Brunson's knuckles. He couldn't tell and didn't care. Vance dropped like a puppet with cut strings, the gun clattering away. The 2 operators from the helicopter leveled their rifles at Brunson. Red laser dots painted his chest. Then 200 bikers stepped into view, weapons raised, surrounding the compound like an iron noose. The operators looked at each other. At the odds. At the burning ruins of the black site that was supposed to be impregnable. The helicopter pilot's voice crackled over the loudspeaker. "Vance, we're leaving. 30 seconds. No movement from Vance. He was unconscious, bleeding onto the concrete. 20 seconds. The operators started backing toward their rappel lines, weapons still trained on Brunson, but no longer firing. They weren't being paid enough to die for a man already lost. 10 seconds. One operator grabbed the line and started ascending. The other followed, leaving Vance crumpled on the floor. The Black Hawk lifted off without its payload, banking hard into the night sky. Its spotlight swept across the compound one last time before vanishing, the rotor wash kicking up dust and ash. Silence fell like a curtain. Brunson knelt beside Alcott, who was barely breathing, his body having spent everything it had left on that final tackle. "Why?" Brunson asked quietly. "You could have just stayed down." Alcott's swollen eyes cracked open. "Because she's still running. Nicole. I can still see her running. And nobody takes that away. Not Aegis. Not Program Coldfall, nobody." Reaper checked Vance's pulse. "He's alive. Barely." Hector spoke from the doorway. "So what now? We've got their golden boy. They've got our location. This isn't over." Brunson's phone buzzed again. Not Director Chen this time. A video message. No sender ID. He opened it, and his blood turned to ice water. The video showed Nicole's safe house, the one only 3 people knew about, the one guarded by club prospects with explicit orders to shoot first. The camera panned across the living room. Empty. Then down the hallway. The guards were unconscious, not dead, just neutralized professionally. The camera stopped at Nicole's bedroom door. A woman's gloved hand reached out and slowly turned the knob. The video ended. Below it, a message. "Checkmate." Brunson's hands shook so violently he almost dropped the phone. Then it rang. Director Chen's voice was ice. "You have Vance. We have leverage. The game continues, Mr. Brunson. But I think you'll find your next move significantly more complicated." The line went dead. Brunson looked at the assembled Brotherhood, at Alcott bleeding on the floor, at Vance unconscious and broken. And for the first time in his life, the enforcer who'd never backed down from anything didn't know what to do. Then Alcott grabbed his wrist with bloody fingers. "The word," he whispered. "What?" "The word I whispered to Nicole. To wake her up." Alcott's cracked lips formed something almost like a smile. "I taught her another one, too. Just in case." Brunson stared. "What did you teach her?" Alcott's eyes closed, but before consciousness left him completely, he said one word. "Hide." And Brunson's phone buzzed with a new video, the bedroom door opening, the room empty, the window wide open, and in the distant darkness a small figure in a white dress running toward the desert, legs pumping strong and sure, heading for a location only she and Alcott knew. The camera shook with frustration. Then the video cut out. Nicole was waiting at the old quarry when Brunson found her at dawn. She sat on a limestone boulder, still in her white dress, knees scraped from running, but eyes clear and bright. The desert sunrise painted everything gold, and when she saw her father's headlight cutting through the dust, she smiled like she'd just won a game of hide and seek. "Mr. Alcott told me this place," she said as Brunson swept her into his arms. "He said if bad people ever came, I should run here and wait for you." Behind them, police sirens wailed in the distance, converging on the burning black site they'd left behind. But the Brotherhood was already ghosts, scattering into the desert on a dozen different routes. Alcott rode in Reaper's sidecar, unconscious, but breathing. Vance was zip-tied in the back of a Prospect's pickup truck, heading for a location where Director Chen would find him eventually, broken, terrified, and with a message carved into his expensive suit jacket. Never again. By the time the FBI arrived at the compound, all they found were tire tracks and ash. 6 months later, the Henderson clubhouse had been rebuilt. Better gates, better security. But the same family. Alcott stood at the entrance every morning, wearing a leather cut that read Doc across the back in letters stitched by Sadie herself. The patch beneath it said Gatekeeper, the old man who'd earned his colors not through violence but through healing. His hands had healed too, mostly. The broken fingers were crooked now, but they could still turn a wrench and stroke a little girl's hair when she had nightmares. Aegis Corporation had dissolved 3 weeks after the desert raid. The official story was restructuring and asset liquidation. The real story, whispered in dark corners where men like Brunson traded information, was that someone had leaked every file from Program Coldfall to WikiLeaks, the New York Times, and 6 congressional oversight committees simultaneously. Director Chen had disappeared, probably into witness protection, or whatever black hole the government used for operators who became liabilities. The data Alcott had stolen was finally free, and with it, the truth about what Aegis had done to 83 human beings in the name of weaponizing trauma. But that was politics. History. The kind of thing that happened in cities far from this dusty compound. Here, at the clubhouse, what mattered was simpler. Brunson stood in the garage bay, watching as Alcott knelt beside Nicole. She was 8 now, taller, stronger, her legs carrying her everywhere she wanted to go. She'd asked the question 100 times over the past 6 months, and finally, Alcott had decided she was ready for the answer. "What was the word?" Nicole asked. "The one you whispered that day?" Alcott's weathered face creased with something between sorrow and peace. "Disengage. It's a military command. Tells the body to release a lock, to let go of fear that's holding it prisoner." "Did it hurt?" "No, little one. It woke you up, like turning on a light in a dark room." He touched her shoulder gently. "Your mama's crash. It made your brain so scared that it turned your legs off to protect you. But you don't have to carry that weight anymore. You're free." Nicole thought about this. Then she hugged him, fierce and strong. "You saved me, Mr. Alcott." "No," the old man said quietly. "Your dad saved both of us." Brunson walked over, carrying a small leather vest, child-sized, custom-made, with a single patch on the back. "Family." He draped it over Nicole's shoulders, and she looked up at him with eyes that understood what this meant. In this world, you didn't earn a cut lightly. It meant protection. It meant belonging. It meant the Brotherhood would burn down anything that tried to hurt you. "You're official now," Brunson said, his voice rough with emotion. "Youngest member we've ever had." Nicole spun around, the vest catching the afternoon light. Then she ran, not walked, ran, across the compound toward the other brothers who were already revving their engines in celebration. The sound thundered across Henderson like a promise. We protect our own. Alcott stood beside Brunson, both of them watching her go. She's going to be trouble when she's 16, Alcott said. Good, Brunson replied. The best ones always are. The little girl who'd been paralyzed by fear for 4 years was now racing between motorcycles, laughing as Reaper lifted her onto his handlebars and revved the engine just to hear her squeal with delight. Brunson put his hand on Alcott's shoulder, the old man who'd been broken and homeless and hunted, now standing tall with a cut on his back and a wrench in his hand. Blood makes you related, Doc, Brunson said quietly, watching his daughter embrace the family she'd chosen. But loyalty makes you family. Alcott nodded, tears cutting clean tracks down his scarred cheeks. And 200 miles away, in whatever hole Director Chen had crawled into, a phone buzzed with a final message from an untraceable number. We remember. We're watching. Touch her again, and we'll show you what real monsters look like. The phone went dark. And in Henderson, Nevada, under a sky painted orange by the setting sun, a little girl in a leather vest ran free, legs strong, heart fearless, surrounded by the roar of engines and the fierce protection of a brotherhood that would never let her fall again. If you believe that true family isn't defined by blood, but by who is willing to bleed for you when the world turns its back, like and share this story. Subscribe now for more stories like this. Also check out the 2 videos showing on the screen right now, specially crafted for you.